Hey guys, hope you're doing well. I just wanted to review the notes that I had already posted on Google Classroom, but since I had put a PowerPoint, I figured I could do some handwritten notes with some visuals to help you understand a little bit better. So the first two terms are going to be autotroph versus heterotroph. Autotroph, think automatically. So these are going to get their energy automatically. So for example, from the sun and photosynthesis. Heterotrophs, hetero means different, troph means eating. So they're going to get it in a different way. So instead of just sitting there and absorbing their energy, we have to work for it. So heterotrophs have to actually ingest food in order to get their nutrients or energy that they need. So to look at some examples, so autotrophs, our major example is going to be plants because they photosynthesize, get their energy from the sun. But other organisms people forget about, phytoplankton, algae, so these are all photosynthesizing. For heterotrophs, us, so obviously we're going to eat that hamburger that I drew earlier. Animals, it doesn't matter if they like meat or plants, they're eating something different or not getting their energy from the sun. And mushrooms, so a lot of people have gotten this one wrong. So if you remember back to that cladogram activity we did, and it said mushrooms are more related to geckos because they're actually a heterotroph. So our heterotrophs are going to break down into two categories. The first one is herbivore. So herbivores are going to be our vegetarians, are those that are eating plants. So that would be things such as deer, rabbit, and then on the other side we have carnivores. So those are going to be our meat eaters. So things like cats, dogs, etc. All right, so now we're going to look at our food pyramid. So there are 3 levels to the pyramid. The bottom level is going to be where we find the most organisms. So this is going to be our producer level. So not to get confused, producer is the same thing as autotroph. So producer, think producing their own food. So they're still photosynthesizing. It's the same exact thing. So an example of this would be plants. So they're photosynthesizing, getting their energy from the sun. Then looking at our second level, this is going to be the ones that are actually eating first. So this is going to be our primary consumers. So primary meaning first. So these are going to be the organisms that are eating the first level. So this is going to be our herbivores. So they're actually eating the producers, the autotrophs, or our plants. So an example for this would be something like a bunny, for example. Then our top level is going to be those that are eating second. So we call this our secondary consumers. So this is going to eat the level right below it. So these are carnivores because they're eating meat. So as I said, the example for a primary consumer we can say is a bunny. So the bunny is going to eat the plants. And then what's going to eat a bunny? Maybe a cat. So our cat would be our secondary consumer. Our carnivore is going to eat the bunny. The bunny eats the plant. There's our food pyramid. So there are a few organisms that don't necessarily fit into these categories. So we put them into a separate category. So the first one is scavenger. And the second one is decomposer. So technically these could be considered carnivores, and I'll explain why in a second. So scavengers are going to be organisms that eat things that have died. So technically they're eating meat, but it's dead meat. So an example for this is going to be a vulture. So you've probably seen them on the side of the highway picking at the roadkill. So they eat the things that are already dead. The decomposers are going to come after the scavengers and break down anything that was left over from these scavengers. So example is worms, flies, mushrooms, etc. So they're going to break down these things back into Earth. So like I said before, mushrooms are heterotrophs. So now that we've learned all the vocab, we can put it all together to create a food chain. So you always start with your autotroph or producer. So in this case, we have grass. Then you have your primary consumer, so a mouse, which is going to eat that grass. And then we have our secondary consumer, which is a cat going to eat the mouse. Sorry about that. So the arrows are always going to point to the predator or whatever is going to be eating the item before it. So this is a food chain. Now we're going to look at what does a food web look like. So a food web is going to include all of the interactions in the ecosystem. So a cow is also going to eat the grass. Deer are also going to eat the grass. Humans are going to eat the cow. A coyote might eat the deer. The coyote might eat the cat as well. So we're including all the different relationships within that ecosystem, not just one interaction. So that's the difference between a food chain and a food web. So that's it for this one, and I'll post the matter notes next week.